this emoji, how do you that the rights to this new
Yeah.
Ultraman, right? And all of a sudden now Vivi's going to have multiple IPs from Netflix. Do you think One Piece comes along with that journey?
One Piece is part of the catalog. So basically the way that it works, right, is in Japan is the creators own the rights, right? So I'm gonna use Dragon Ball as an example, right? So with Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama, his company is Bird Studio, right? So they retain the right. It's not like over here in the States where you can give your rights away and stuff like they retain the rights. So Bird Studio owns Dragon Ball. Now, when it comes to, all right, how are you going to get your IP out to other people? That's when other companies come in. So under that would be Shueisha. And Shueisha is pretty much what controls the manga. Because first, typically the anime is used to sell like the manga. Like the manga is kind of like the core when it comes to, you know, these Japanese IP. So Shueisha, you know, has controls the manga. They have different magazines that they come out with. Jump magazines. Like the most common one is Shonen Jump. That's where you're gonna have your Naruto's and your One Pieces and stuff like that. Like the stuff that's geared towards kids, like teenage boys. Uh, so then from there you have your different studios that take the manga and develop it into anime. So if we're going along the lines of Dragon Ball, you have Toei, which may or may not be different at this point, but let's not go into the minutia. But you have Toei, that controls as far as the anime adaptation of the manga. So where does Viz fall in? Okay, so Shueisha controls. Hold on, let me bring up Tails.
The manga. Do you reckon? So I obviously saw the announcement yesterday. I think it's great, but
Mm-hmm.
man, look, and this is just a selfish thing on my part. I don't care about comics, bro. Give me some dope collectibles. Do you think it's going to be, you know, collectibles as well, or are we just going to see a load of
So
comics?
so this ties back into what I was saying, how everything is divided, right? So okay, so going to Shueisha, right? Shueisha is what controls the manga, specifically, you know, the manga. Now, once you get into other avenues, for instance, the anime, right? That's going to be controlled by the studio that's doing it. So, like as Dragon Ball is a reference, Toei, which, like I said, it may have changed because there's some stuff that happened with Dragon Ball, but just just for the sake of simplicity, let's say Toei, right? Now they control the anime, right? So that's who you have to go through. So like now when it comes to toys, right, and figurines, that's Bandai. So that's a different company, right? And when it comes to the video games, is Bandai Namco. So if you like, let's say you want to build or let's say you want to make a toy, a Dragon Ball toy, right? You'd go through the route of Bandai, Shueisha, Bird Studio. Everything at the end of the day still has to get approved by the top person, which is Bird Studio, which is Akira Toriyama's estate. So the fact that we have Viz Media, which is a distributor for the West when it comes to manga, that alone isn't enough for collectibles. Like they need, and I don't know if they have it. They may have it, right? They may have made a partnership with Bandai or whoever would be in control of as far as on the collectible side. But everything is very very sectioned out when it comes to these Japanese IP, which is also one of the reasons why they're so hard to get, because it's not like you can just go to one source. So right now, what I would say to answer your question, Tails, if they only announce Viz, then I'm gonna take that to mean that we're just getting manga as of right now.
Right.
But that could change. That could change.
Okay, cool. Also, that did go through correctly, so nice one. Appreciate you
It
helping me
went
out
through.
there, bro.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Cool. And then shout out Yo Staff and Masteroni in here too. If anyone wants to come up and talk about this deal with manga, definitely come up and talk, because I'm personally excited about it. Like I was saying, like this is, I'm not even excited about this on a VV level, because I wanted to start collecting a lot of digital stuff, uh, or digital manga for a minute. but I've been holding off on doing it because I didn't want to buy them on like the Viz app, because you can get them directly from Viz, but they're obviously not NFTs. So you get them, and that's real. There's no value to it. Yo, Steph, are you into I don't are you into manga?
Um, I mean, I don't really know much about it, but I think it's cool. This is I always love to like get educated when new things come about into the community that makes
Hmm.
everybody like super excited. So I'm sure
Yeah,
I'm gonna get my share of manga stuff that I'm gonna think is dope.
yeah, yeah. I would definitely like. What you say, Tails?
No, I was just saying, for me, man, all I want to see is the sliding bite from Akira, bro.
Mm,
I want to see that shit dropped.
that would be a dope collectible too, especially if they
Yeah,
make it animated with
because
like the light trail that follows.
they've
Um,
they've used that, right, like that whole that there's that iconic scene of him sliding on the bike, like that's been done in anime about a trillion times, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's borrowed from a lot. I mean, Akira is a legendary,
Well, it was in
anime.
the 80s.
Mm, I think so. I think so. I think you're right. Yeah, definitely a classic. So I mean, you know what, and it's funny because like Vivi tends to like kind of like start out with classics, right? Like even with the whole with Ultraman being the first, manga drop, and even like with I guess Astro Boy being like the first official kind of like anime collectible that we have on the app. Um, but yeah, I could see them, probably coming out with something like that early if if that's what they do. But welcome. I see more people coming into space. I gotta give a shout out. Yo, Tete, what's good, bro? Yo, feel free to come up if you're free, man. We're talking manga. Yo, Viz just dropped on. Well, Viz was just announced on Vivi, so I'm amped about that. Shout out Sanjay, Augustus, Boob, Stu, Masteroni, Omi-Wan, the homie. Brian was good, bro, and Notorious. Um, yeah, man. So like, I'm excited to see how this develops. I'm excited to like kind of like really get into to talking about this on especially like on the comic shop and reviewing them. I do feel and this goes back like with Tails what I was saying, like I do feel they're probably going to start with um older stuff, right? Or it may not have to be old, but stuff that already has bound volumes. And the reason why I say that is because that's how Viz uh, releases their books anyway, as far as like in bound volumes. You can read on their app in real time as it launches, but those are like chapters which you kind of get for free. Which kind of which that takes me to the difference between what how like Japan drops their stuff in relation to how we see comics dropped on the west side of things, which may make Vivi have to change its strategy or adapt its strategy. So like with okay, so what we're used to with Marvel, right? I'm gonna use Marvel as an example because we have the Vivi Comics app, which drops the comics as they launch in real time. So as they come out, every on a weekly basis, you can buy the comics and have them, day of on release, and you can buy them from your comic book store, or you don't have to. You can get the digital versions. Now, if you're subscribed to Marvel Unlimited, what that kind of does is you have access to a whole library of comics, kind of like a Netflix model, but you don't have access to them at day one, right? Like you have to wait a little bit. So if you do want to read it, be on top as far as no spoilers and get your information literally as soon as it launches. Your only option is really to either buy it from your local comic book store or, like right now use the VV app where you can get them day one digitally. With manga, it's a little different as far as it's inverted, right? Oh, shout out Sapphire in the space. What's good, Sap? So with manga, it's a little different. So with like if you well, first off, if you go to your app store, Shueisha has like three different manga apps that's under them. Viz, I would qualify as being under them because they're the United States distributor. Um, they have the Shonen Jump app, and they also have Manga Plus, right? And I'll explain to you the differences between them because I honestly don't know why they have three apps, but they do. But so the Viz app covers a whole bunch of Viz Media stuff, which is also all under Shueisha, just how it's distributed over here to the states. Um, but it doesn't cover the shonen stuff, right? So if you're going to the Viz Media app, you can and you're subscribed to it. You can read a large portion of the Viz Media stuff, with the exception of the shonen stuff. So no Dragon Ball, no One Piece, no Naruto on the Viz Media app. You can purchase it, however. So one of the key differences with the way these apps work, I was saying with how it works in the West, is the older stuff you have to be subscribed to have access to it, which is probably like I think it's like $2 or $3 a month. It's actually really cheap, but you have to be subscribed to have access to the older stuff. Now the newer stuff that comes out, because manga releases in chapters in magazines out in Japan, in Jump magazines. So the newer stuff, they actually have those for free. So you don't have to pay anything. And this is actually released by Shueisha, right? So that's one key difference as opposed to with how Veve has their model right now, because I can't really see them selling new manga chapters if Viz itself releases them for free, right? Um, I guess it depends on how they do it. So that's why I'm kind of like leaning towards there's probably going to be the older bound volumes that release like that. And maybe they'll just fill up the store, or maybe they'll gradually release it, however they want to do that. Now, with the apps, so like I was saying, so Viz has the Viz app, which has the Viz stuff. It has the Shonen Jump app, which is specifically for the shonen stuff, so your Dragon Balls, your One Pieces, your Naruto. Same model. You can subscribe to it to get the older stuff, or you can just have it for free and just keep up with the with them as they launch, and read them in real time as they come out for free. And then it has the Manga Plus app. And this one is interesting because the Manga Plus app actually is free. You don't have to subscribe to anything, and you can read almost anything, right? As far as even the older stuff. But the only caveat is you can only read it once, right? So, like, a lot of people use the Manga Plus app if they have things that they want to read and they don't want to pay for the subscription model, and they don't really, care about having it and reading it over and over again, and they just want to go through a series. They'll jump into that, read the series, and it's one and done. So that's pretty much how the manga apps work, which is going to be interesting as far as how releases it. I feel like the collectible approach is probably makes the most sense, because now people are probably buying it because they actually want to collect it, which kind of dials back to me on far as like why I'm personally amped about this, because like I was saying, I've been wanting to have a collection of manga for a while now. Like I have some manga. I have as far as physical manga, I have a few things I bought digitally, but I've been holding off on buying it. One, because ideally I want it digital, just to save space, uh, especially when it comes to Dragon Ball, because I have everything Dragon Ball related, as far as with Blu-rays, DVDs, pretty much everything that Funimation has released, even like the copies of the same stuff over and over again. I have it. I have multiple copies of Dragon Ball Z in different formats. But I wanted to have all the manga, so I've been holding off on buying it digitally on the Viz app, because of the fact that there's really no value to it other than just reading it. Um, and I've been hoping that obviously like Vivi would get would partner with them, so that way I can start collecting there and pretty much buy all the things that I'm into from that. So like I'm excited about this, man. I'm like just as a fan of manga and a fan of anime and Japanese IP, like that's really like the big thing that I've been looking forward to. I mean, I like the comics. The comics have been fun, but I see myself reading a lot more on the manga side, and especially like because of the fact, and what I was saying too is like when it comes to manga is like the source, right? So when a lot of us, I've heard of anime or watched anime and stuff like that, but anime is kind of like just the adaptations of the manga, and anime like out in the East is more so used to sell the manga. Like the manga is really like the obviously the source material. So I'm looking forward to like reading some of these manga that the animes didn't do justice to. And one example, that I think of is Tokyo Ghoul, where that manga is looked at as a masterpiece, but the anime is pretty much crapped on because they deviated from it so much. Let me bring Sanjay up real quick. But yeah, they deviated so much. So like stuff like that, you know, I feel like I didn't get the experience of the true story. So I'm really amped to start collecting some of this stuff. But what's good, Sanjay? How you doing, bro?
Hey, how you doing, Emoji? Thank you for hosting this space, brother. I was just sitting there and listening. I was like, and I was like, oh, I keep hearing emojis. Is there anybody else up there? And then I was like, oh, he's talking, to himself. And I'm like, all right, look, keep talking, but now you
Well, no,
can
I was waiting for
to
people to
me.
request. I was waiting for people to request, and no one
You
came
can
up, so
talk
I
to me
just
now,
started
brother.
talking.
Man, Emoji, I gotta, shout you out here, brother. You've done such an amazing job. Every one of my parties, you've coordinated the music. You've just been very, very cool at it. And by the way, you and I think, have hosted the biggest space I think ever. I think. I'm not
I think
sure.
so. I think so. It was like 4.5K, right?
4.6
4.6K.
thousand. Yeah, 4.6K. So 1,700 people, unique people, tuned into our space,
Mm.
and 4,600 total views on that, X space. So we do have some bond together there, brother.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah,
man. I mean, hopefully the spaces just keep getting bigger, right? And
yeah,
and that's the goal. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I'm excited about that. I know we talked a little bit yesterday too about like the manga situation, but but yeah,
Are you
I really,
Ultraman fan?
huh?
Are you Ultraman fan?
No, I'm not. So I'm not. I'm not really amped about the Ultraman drop. I'm amped more so about the Viz partnership. I mean, I'll probably get it anyway to check it out because why not, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Support it.
Hmm.
But I've never really I've never really watched Ultraman like that. And I didn't watch the new. I know they have a new thing on Netflix, right?
Yeah,
I just didn't
I
check it
haven't seen
out.
it.
I actually thought about checking it out. I might check it
Yeah.
out now. Did you?
Yeah, no, I'm going to. I'm going to check it out, man, for sure. I'm going to get deeper into that IP as well. So I was going to ask you, did you see the Ultraman, visuals that were played in the New York Comic Con party that Vivi threw?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, we were all sitting outside and chatting, right? We weren't
Oh
on
yeah,
the.
no, I was in there. I was in there. Yeah, they had him fighting dinosaurs and everything.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, right? That was so amazing, man. Like I think like that would be amazing, man. I'm so excited about New York Comic Con and San Diego Comic Con this year. I can't even tell you, brother.
Hmm.
I haven't planned the party as yet in San Diego, but I'm just gonna pick the date and do it. And New York, yeah, I need to wait for Vivi to confirm because New York is expensive, brother. Very expensive. Those parties cost so
Yeah,
much, some serious cheese to throw. So, but you are coming to New York, yes? You're close
yeah.
by.
I mean, yeah, I'm only like 15 minutes away, so I'm definitely gonna be
Oh,
there.
sure. And
Um,
with the emoji entourage too, or like you roll with all your brothers?
yeah, I never traveled dolo. Uh, but yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I mean, I guess you kind of like have things cooking in the works as far as what you're thinking of
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
want
for
to do.
sure. Yeah, I've already reached out to people and stuff. I already have a plan, right? I worked with Ron, so I'm going actually to New York in August to finalize the details. So Ron's friend has a gallery in New York City, and so it can host about 200 some people. So I'm going to see. I mean, I don't know, that guy or what he wants to, like how much he's going to charge me for it and all that other, the mechanics. But I want to throw that party in an art gallery this time. Like the Veve party's all like nightclubby, right? My
Yeah.
party's more kind of the sophisticated, chatty kind. You kind of get to know people, meet people. Don't call it a black tie affair, but it's kind of upscale kind of lounge, more of a lounge vibe, right? They have more
Hmm.
the nightclub vibe. I have more the lounge vibe, and you need kind of both, right? Both are fun. They're very different kind of events, and yeah, and
You should get a spot with that that has a piano in it.
um, that's doable. I mean, I probably can ask Steinway. I am a customer,
You just
so
gotta have one pull up. Just have one delivered.
yeah, I could. They do that, they could
Yeah,
do
no, I know, I know.
that. So, if I get one delivered, you will play, correct?
Yeah, I got you.
Because I'm not paying for a piano to get shipped to the location if you're not gonna play. That'd be cool, man. That'd be cool. I heard Props plays some piano too.
Nice, nice.
He played. Remember, he played on Spaces once.
I don't know if was there. I saw a video
He
he played
recorded.
Spaces,
Yeah,
but
video. Sorry. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Video. Yeah.
I did want to jump over because Omi Wan came up too.
Yeah, of course, man.
So
How
I
you
just
guys
wanted to
doing?
say what's up to him real quick. Omi Wan, what's good, bro?
What's good, Emoj? What's good, Sanjay? It's good to see you guys.
What's up, bro? I know you're a fan of anime, right? Weren't you in my anime watch parties?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
I
know you were
love.
there for the DC. I just wasn't sure if you were there for the anime too.
No, I love me some good anime, and I'm glad you brought up that point as far as the manga, right? Like the manga always kind of is leading the way. You know what I mean? Like that's where
Yeah,
all the material comes from as far as
yeah.
as far as the anime goes. So I am curious though, and I haven't really looked into it. So to be honest, the answer's probably already out there. But I'm interested in as far as the translations go, right? Because I know that most of the manga, is done in Japanese, and I know that sometimes, depending on how it's translated, you can lose a little bit of it in translation. So I'm curious as far as Viz goes, how do they handle that?
So with this, I mean, I'd say Viz is pretty accurate. Viz is the like is if you're reading manga in English in the States, you're reading it from Viz. So that is what we know, as far as the what the story is. Now, what I will say though, as far as when it comes to what is it, just languages, because I know Vivi's experience like looking at different languages and stuff like that on the app. Um, I'm not sure as far as how this is going to translate to getting manga in languages outside of English, because of the fact that Viz specifically is the company for it's the English distributor, right? Um, so I don't know as far as whether they're going to be getting the actual manga chapters that come from Japan under Shueisha, um, and getting it in Japanese. I don't know, but it looks like if it's Viz, this is specifically for English, because it's an American company. But
Gotcha. That
as
makes
far as the
sense.
translation, I mean, the translation seems to be pretty accurate. I've never heard anyone really complain about, that you can't really read the read the English manga because it's so off from the Japanese version. The only complaint, obviously, that we would hear really is when it comes to the anime adaptations.
Oh yeah,
But
and
that's gotten a lot better over the years anyway. Like a large portion of the reason why the anime translations or dubs were so bad, like specifically in the 90s, was because like just they so Western programming they didn't feel that the content would translate well to the children over here, so they tried to change it to make it something that children over here could relate to, or they felt that maybe what was said was inappropriate, or they wanted to censor it. So a lot of those anime that came out, Dragon Ball Z included, Pokemon that came out over here were very different than the original source material. And a lot of people found that out from just watching the subbed or from reading the mangas. But yeah, that doesn't really happen too much because they kind of like they don't look at United States kids as for lack of a better term, being too dumb to handle handle anime or handle foreign to them. But so it's gotten a lot better.
That's cool. Yeah, man. I'm really excited because I'm like you. I enjoy the anime, right? But I've also heard that a lot of times it doesn't do the manga justice, right? So I'm really curious to get into some of these manga stories that I've loved in anime form, and kind of see how much of the context or some of the stuff that was maybe left off from the
Mhm.
series. So
One of the biggest reasons why that is because so like I said, typically the way that it's set up is the manga is what's being sold. The anime is used to sell the manga, right? But the manga leads. So the manga starts the story, and the anime subsequently, if it's popular enough and gets an anime adaptation, then the anime will follow it. The issue though is a lot of these stories that are ongoing, the writer may take breaks, right? The it's with when it comes to manga, the writer is the writer. It's not like you have a whole bunch of people, where like with Marvel and stuff like that. All right, you have Jonathan Hickman writing this story, or you have Peach Momoko writing this story, right? Like Dragon Ball Z was written by Akira Toriyama when it comes to the manga, right? You do have other little anime adaptations and stuff like that. They may have other writers, but when it comes to the manga, it's written by the author. So as a result of that, what happens is, let's say, the writing stops or something may happen, or maybe just like with anything with writing, right, you may have parts where you're not writing for a period. Well, what happens to the anime when that happens? What happens is these networks still have to put out content. They still have to put out shows. They're booked for a certain amount of seasons going into it. So just because the writer may not be writing anymore, the animation studio can't just stop producing. So what you get during that is filler episodes, and that's when they'll just make stuff up or kind of like deviate from the storyline. A lot of times what they'll do is just do completely different things that have nothing to do with the manga, so they don't interfere with the main story. But sometimes it gets to the point where they're just like, all right, we don't know when this manga is going to continue. We don't know what's happening. We're just going to finish the story on our own. And that's when you get the deviations. A prime example of that is Full Metal Alchemist. So if you're familiar with the show, there's actually two versions of that show. Shout out Justin in the audience. Thanks for coming through, bro. And Rebel and Superstars. So a prime example of that is Full Metal Alchemist. So when Full Metal Alchemist, the original anime, dropped, um, they followed the manga to a specific point. Then they couldn't follow the manga anymore, so they pretty much just went left and created their own story and wrapped up the anime. Now, granted, the story that they created actually wasn't bad, right? Like, it was still a solid anime. It was still, still a legendary anime. But when the manga actually finished, they went back and did a whole new series called Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which then follows the manga. So that's an example of something kind of like pivoting because the manga wasn't finished yet, and then they being like, all right, we want to actually do the source material, so we're going to do a new series and follow the source material now that it's all done. And you have examples of that where that wasn't done. Let me bring up John, like Tokyo Ghoul, where they kind of like deviated from the manga, and it just ended up, from what I hear, being a disaster. And the manga is like the pure version of how to experience that that story. Um,
That makes sense. Yeah,
yeah,
because it's kind of similar to like the Game of Thrones situation, right? With George R.
pretty
R. Martin.
much. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Where
So
and we all saw how that ended. So typically people like to follow the manga storyline. Let me say what's up to John. John, are you there? John?
Oh yeah, I'm up here now. Sorry about that, like technical difficulties. Hey, I need to come up here because that was an awesome question that was asked by Omi Juan. So
Hmm.
I want to kind of roll back to that, and then I want to jump on what you said, Emoji. Um,
Definitely. Mhm.
yeah, Omi Juan, like Viz is absolutely known for being one of the best word for word translators out there. They've been doing this since the '80s. But one thing that they tend to do, and I don't think they've ever stopped doing it, is try to make it more culturally accessible to those living outside Japan. And that's a double edged sword, right? I'll give you one example. One of their earliest works was to translate was Rama One Half by Rumiko Takahashi, right? So you probably know her better by her works for Inuyasha, right? But the thing is, Rama One Half had 30 billion Japanese culturally specific gags, and that's the problem, right? Because she used to write gag manga, right? So, and before that, it was Lam Urusei Yatsura, right? Which is those crazy aliens. Total gag manga. It'll go way over your head because you won't get any of the references, right? So, what Viz did instead of going for word translation is kind of westernize the jokes so you would laugh at least when you saw this panel and then they said something which they would find funny, right? Like, I'll give you one example. There's this one dude who over in Japan, he's the school principal of the school, right? And he always dresses in Hawaiian clothes, and he has a dark tan, and he has kind of frizzy hair and wears shades and everything like that. And Japanese get that joke, right? Because when you go on vacation in Japan, the closest place to vacation is either Okinawa or Hawaii, right? And so when you get a guy who is addicted to wanting to vacation a lot and coming back from Hawaii in Japan and like totally appropriating the Hawaiian culture like that, but it's a straight up normal Japanese dude, but he's like totally big kahuna, right? Like, it's funnier if you get the context of why the school principal is totally, pretending to be King Kamehameha, right? And so, and that's kind of like there's tons of jokes in Dragon Ball too that Viz kind of translated out, right? I mean, why do you think the Key Blast is called Kamehameha, right? It's actually the name of the Hawaiian king. So Japanese people get that joke because they vacation in Hawaii so much. They get all of that kind of cultural touchstone cultural references, right? Like the ones that they kept in there, like they said, okay, this is globally acceptable because another long running joke is that everyone who's an alien is named after food, right? Like Gohan means rice, and Goku's original name is Kakarot, which is carrot, and things like that. Vegeta is vegetable, obviously, right? So those kind of gags make sense, but the other ones that I'm telling you, they won't make sense, right? So Viz tends to wash those out. And so again, double-edged sword. You might like it, you may not like it, but what you're getting in translation is not a one-for-one translation. It's a cultural translation as well, just giving people the context, right? And then now going to what Emoji was talking about. Um, Unfortunately, what recently happened was that Gainax declared bankruptcy, and there's this huge history about Gainax, right? And actually, Viz actually has a long history with Gainax as well because they put out the first Western release of Evangelion,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And
I saw that. I saw it. You posted that in the chat.
yeah, it was so
Yeah.
sad when Gainax died. But to hardcore fans, Gainax died a long time ago, right?
Mm.
So the town left the building when Hideki Anno left, right? And so Anno left in order to go into live action. Like Shin Godzilla was his, Shin Ultraman was his. Anything with Shin on it, that's him, right? And so his studio, I think it's called Studio Kuga. I think that's his. Basically, went to other IP, but Gainax kept his IP. right? Because as you know, he created Evangelion, right? So
Hmm.
when he left, he didn't get to take Evangelion with him. So Gainax kept going on with these stories that were not Evangelion, but were using Evangelion IP. I totally stopped watching at that point or listening at that point because it was more of a slice of life story, and everyone was just getting along, and they were in school, and they were having like kind of rom-com hijinks. I'm like, this is not Evangelion. What the hell is this crap, right? So like sometimes you can tell when the talent has left the building, right? And so, but IP is so strong that for decades that floated them. See what I'm saying? Because Evangelion
Hmm.
was such a masterful piece of work. It's still considered one of the top anime of all time, of all history, right? And
Hmm.
so, but everyone knows that was Hideki Anno, right? But yeah, he got divorced from his own IP. Okay, now to go back three because I mean I'm sorry, but I know I'm data dumping,
No, no,
but
no, no. Go ahead, John.
yeah,
I love when you. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. There's a third piece which I'm wondering about and I cannot answer, which is Viz received all and very difficultly I might add because we talk about all the time how it's so hard to get actual legitimate manga out of Japan, right? So Viz in the 80s when Japan was a little looser with IP was able to obtain and actually maintain because they actually did a decent job with it, unlike say Harmony Gold and those guys who screwed those guys over. But that's another subject matter. So Viz had this ancient like a connection with Shogakukan and all the big publishing companies, and they maintained it. So the question is Vivi going to be able to leverage the decades worth of licensing contracts that Vivi has made, I mean, that Viz has made with its contacts in Japan in order to
Hmm.
release the kind of stuff that we want to see? And so that is the question I can't answer. I put you probably
It.
don't want to pin it up, but I put it in like the bottom right purple comment corner. Viz's 2024 publishing announcements.
Oh yeah,
So you
yeah.
could
I'm gonna pin it up. I'm gonna pin it up.
okay, so you can see all of the brand new stuff Viz is putting out as of the fall of 2024. And to your point, emoji, and this is the one point that you brought up 3 points ago, is
Hmm.
that sometimes jumping in the middle of something will just confuse people. For instance, if you try to do
Yeah.
like One Piece now, it will be
Yeah.
impossible.
Start. Yeah. Hmm.
It's too far gone, right? It's like there's no way to catch people up, right? Because it's on the 30 billionth episode and he's already in gear 4 or gear 5, I don't even know, right? It's too far gone. But
Hmm.
there's a possibility for Viz to maybe simul release these titles coming out in fall 2024. And I'm looking at these titles in fall 2024 and some of them look very intriguing, right? For instance, it's not just old rehashes. Like I see some Studio Ghibli in there, I see some, JoJo in there, but you have new stuff like the Kaiju number 8. I think that's one that anime is out
Yo,
like
I love Kaiju
right
number
now,
8.
right?
Hmm.
That anime is
Yeah.
now, and so I think
Hmm.
that would be a great opportunity for Vivi to pick up on because that is hot
But
right now. It's simulcast in anime right now, and the manga they're getting ready to roll it. They're probably translating it as we speak. That would be a great leverage, right? So that's the kind of thing that I would look forward to the most instead of saying, oh, they have
yeah.
Pokemon, that means we're getting Pokemon. No, I almost think like man, Viz got that title for Pokemon back in the 80s or early 90s. I don't even know if they even have the right to put anything out there for Pokemon anymore, right? We don't know the kind of behind the scene deals. So maybe the best thing to do is to look forward and see what Viz is already intending to do in 2024 and thinking, okay, if there's gonna be anything, it's probably gonna be some of this stuff. And then maybe possibly build hype around that. But that's just my personal thinking. Again, I qualified it in the beginning. I'll qualify at the end. I obviously don't know for real. I don't know.
But John, the only thing that I was thinking about, even with the like releasing them simultaneously as they come out in Japan, is I mean, Viz already puts them out for free. So I'm thinking kind of like how do you sell something that the company is putting out for free anyway? Like I could go to the Viz app right now and I can read everything that's coming out in real time, like the most recent future. I think like 3 or 4 chapters, without having to pay a dime, without even having to subscribe to Viz.
Yeah, emoji. The way I think of it is this, which is take a look at like the VV Comics app, right? Like right
Hmm.
now, you can read pretty cheaply, like same day Marvel comic books, right, for like $3.99 if you
Yeah.
want to. But they understand there is an audience for people to have ownership of this stuff and will pay
Hmm.
$5 to $6 more to have an NFT of it, right? And so I think that is probably the discussion they had with Viz, which is we're not going to upset your business model. We're not going to touch anything you do. What you do works for you. We're not going to compete with you, right? But what we're going to
Hmm.
do is provide an additional option to the clientele you already have if they want to feel an additional a layer, a sense of ownership digitally. We can provide that via the Veve app for an extra $5, $6, right? And then
Yeah.
those guys.
But you're talking about volumes, not chapters, because $5 or $6 for a
Yeah. Oh no, no,
chapter is
like a
pretty
Tonka
expensive.
one, right? Like so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what emoji is talking about is maybe people don't know it is in Japan they have these monthly annuals, right? Compendiums, like you can't even call them magazines because they're like thousands of pages long. They're gigantic. Like say Shonen Jump, right? When a Shonen Jump comes, it looks like a telephone book, right? And when you open up this telephone book, each chapter is a different manga, right? So back in the day, you would see one chapter.
Think like Saturday morning cartoons
Yeah,
programming.
except in like magazine format, right? So then you would
Yeah.
check just one chapter and it would have only a couple of pages, honestly, of Dragon Ball. And then you would flip to the next book and it would be Bleach. And you would flip to the next one, and it would be Naruto. And you would flip to the next, but it would all be in one gigantic book, right? This periodical. And then that periodical, honestly, was meant to be thrown away, right? And then the next one would come. And then the next one, well, not because Japan has a really good recycling culture. So you would just put it in the recycling bin, right? And then it would go to the right places. And so they would just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And like it's almost like newspaper style, but like on steroids, right? Now, if a particular title tends to take off, what they would do is they would compile maybe 10 or 12 of those chapters, put them all together in something they called a tankobon, right? And it would be like maybe like a half inch thick, um, kind of smaller than a comic book sized little soft cover book, and then you could just read like that entire story arc all together of those chapters instead of having to carry these gigantic phone books around if you want to reread it, right? And so these things would sell like hotcakes, right? Now if a particular story arc in these books are like 3 or 4 books, like especially for Cell Saga or Majin Buu Saga, they would definitely cover like several tankobons. If they took off, they could get an anime adaptation possibly greenlit. And if an anime adaptation was already greenlit, but the tankobons haven't caught up, that's when you would get what Emoji was talking about, which is those filler episodes, because the tankobon hasn't caught up, so the production company can actually animate it and put it out there for your viewing, right? And so it's this really insane pace of someone like Oda or Toriyama, like churning it out periodically, and then it making it into tankobon. You get to read it, and that'll have to tide you over until you can watch it, on anime. And then it just rinse and repeats, and it never ends. It never ends. So, when Toriyama passed away, unfortunately, some people say he kind of passed away of overwork, right? Oda, for the first time in his God-given life, actually took a break, and he actually, posted to everybody, guys, like this guy died. He was my idol. I'm gonna take the hint. I'm gonna take a break.
And that's the creator of
And
One
he's the
Piece,
creator of
just for
One
those
Piece,
that.
right? So what that means though for everyone is that the One Piece anime is probably going to get 30 billion, filler episodes for a while until he can get back into his rhythm, because it is that finely tuned of a machine. I don't think people overseas understand how insanely tight the schedules and deadlines are in Japan in order to make everything run smoothly, right? So like
But wait, how far behind is the anime to the manga though with One Piece? Because I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it's far enough because, like, well, actually, you know what? A correction. I mean, man, see, I was about to be old man, because in the back old days, you had to hand paint this stuff, and you had to hand stuff, and you
Uh-huh.
had to like actually photograph this stuff, and like they don't have to do that anymore. It's all CGI now,
Yeah.
right? So it's all CG. So the
Mhm.
turnaround is pretty quick. Like they can be as quick as 2 to 3 weeks, right? Um, if
Mm-hmm.
it's really crappy, like South Park, um, it can be almost same week, right? Because it's so
Mm-hmm.
simple to do. But as you know, like Japanese anime is a little more involved than South Park, so it'll take maybe a couple more weeks. But still, like having like a month separation, uh, like Oda can really like it's almost like a traffic jam, right? Like if it slows down a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, all of a sudden the production all the way behind it, into figurines, the marketing, it's going to back up even more. So yeah, even
Yeah.
taking one chapter
Yeah.
break can mean like you get 4 filler episodes. It can something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, I mean, and you do have your exceptions too, right? Like, I mean, because they can go back and touch it up. But I mean, an exception kind of like would be Dragon Ball Super, because Dragon Ball Super was ahead of the manga, which is not really like a common way of doing things. So they were telling the story that like the anime was actually spearheading it. But as a result, you also had like, especially in the early seasons, some crappy animation and some
Yeah,
like you could tell it was
super
rushed. You could tell it was
problematic.
rushed.
Because
Hmm.
as Toriyama didn't really have his hands on it that much. You know, it was
Yeah,
more inspired by. Yeah,
Toyotaro.
he would once in a while peep over and go, "Oh, okay, that looks so good," but he was not in charge of it, right? So,
Hmm.
so I mean, I get people love Super, but in my, a hardcore gatekeeper otaku type doesn't accept that as main canon, right? And so, yeah, because
Really?
it's not Toriyama, right? It's just like when what do you call it, Studio Ghibli, right? And they got
Hmm.
his son to do it instead of him, and that was like Tales of Earthsea or Wizard of Earthsea or whatever it is, and it looked like a Studio Ghibli film, right? And it moved like
Hmm.
one, and the plot was like very fantastical and stuff. But Goro could not do what his father did, right? And so the magic wasn't there, right? And so I'll tell you what Super was. Super was a great homage. I loved it for that, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Well, I will say, I will say this, right, and I do feel you on that, right, because as far as with how much of Toriyama's hand was involved in Super, but I will say this, like those storylines and everything was still given from like Toriyama wrote Battle of Gods, like that was it was just it wasn't as in depth, like he didn't do the drawing, he didn't do. But he gave the notes pretty much breaking down as far as what he wanted to happen or the overall story arc. So I mean, to me, that's much more than GT, which
oh
really
no,
he had very little.
GT is hard. No, no, we not speak of GT. Like GT does not exist. No, no.
Yeah. So I still kind of look at it like, all right, this is still Toriyama's vision, because he's the one that initially put the vision out, and then he approved it, even though his hand wasn't obviously like as much in it
Yeah, but
as Z
here's
was with
horrible.
him drawing
Let's
it.
say Super didn't come out until this year. Now, obviously
Hmm.
dead, right? Ask yourself in your heart of
Hmm.
hearts, can you start Super now and finish it like a year from now, whatever it is, and it still be the same? The answer is yes. You know why? Because that's how hands off Toriyama could be. Toriyama could have, before he died, left all the same kind of notes that he did for Super, and the team behind Super could produce Super identically. And that's what
Yeah.
the problem is, right? It's kind of like Andy Warhol and his factory, right? Of course, hands were
Hmm.
his idea, but like it was a factory who turned it out. So it was almost meant to be commercialized, right? You could tell that it wasn't him doing it. And that's the problem, right? And so it's a
Hmm.
beautiful homage. Like especially that last episode when
And there's a lot of fan
a
service to
lot
it.
of
You could
fan
tell that
service,
that's
right?
for
But
a
we
reason.
loved it because we're fans, and so it was servicing us, right?
Hmm.
But in our heart of hearts, we knew this wasn't an evolution, right? This was looking
Hmm.
back, and it was nostalgic, and it was awesome, especially at the end. Like you said, at the beginning, the animation wasn't so great, but by the end, they kind of got how to do it kind of right,
Oh yeah, yeah, for
and
sure.
then so it was like it was fun at the end, but it was still kind of like fan servicey, and it was not evolving form. Like when you see Oda and what he's doing with
Hmm.
Luffy, right? Like that,
Hmm.
like I'll tell you, if Oda had died at Gear 2, we would not have gotten Gear 4, you know,
Hmm.
because the team would not have even dared to do it because they and the fans all would have said, "Oh, you're bastardizing Oda's work. How dare you do something that Oda didn't imagine?" You know what I mean? Only Oda
Hmm.
can evolve Luffy to the next level where everyone accepts it and goes, okay, because it's Oda, I accept it because he
Hmm.
believes Luffy can go to this next level and he can take this kind of personality and become this evolution of the fruit, then we will go with him on this journey. This journey is moving forward. See, Toriyama at some point, the journey ended. You know, the journey ended. I hate to say it, and the same. It's not just the Eastern world; it's the Western world too. I was talking to people about Frank Miller. Frank Miller had a beautiful documentary that came out this week about his alcoholism and his addiction, right? And he said that pretty much destroyed him, right? So this was after the Sin City movie came out around 2014, and he said that's when it really hit him hard. You look at his artwork since that time, it is destroyed, right? You look at his writing, it is destroyed. He's no longer a genius, right? And he knows it, right? And so he basically made this, documentary to explain to his fans why uh, his creative decline was so severe in the recent years, right? He almost even can't do a signature correctly when you meet him at a con. It's really, really bad, and he looks like he's on death's bed. Right? He aged so quickly. It's because of the alcoholism, right? And so at that point, you cannot expect something like The Dark Knight Returns from him anymore. You cannot expect Batman Year from One from him. You cannot expect Sin City from him anymore. And we as fans just have to accept that, right? So no matter where Batman goes in the future, even if it like name checks or fan services that era of Batman, like we have to accept it for what it is, which is a replacement for Frank Miller. Even Frank Miller can't do Frank Miller anymore, right? So we as comic book fans and as manga fans, just accept that as part of life, right? Just like when we Evangelion things, it's not Gainax anymore. It's not true Hideki Anno anymore, and that's just the way it is. I mean, we have to accept it.
That was dope, John. That kind of reminds me of what Star Wars is going through, right? Like all the people that think like everything that came after Lucas is just not real Star Wars anymore.
Yeah, it is very similar to that, Juan. Like the three sequel movies. Oh my God! Like true old school Star Wars fans are rolling in their graves. I'm still alive. I'm rolling in my grave. Right?
Wait, I think hold on. I wouldn't compare. I wouldn't compare Super to the Star Wars
No, no, no,
sequels.
no. Talking about like the creative hand being off, but yeah. Like the analogy is not perfect, of course, because George Lucas obviously sold his rights to Disney, and Disneyfied it, right? Like it is a little
Yeah,
different,
yeah.
but I would say, you know what a good one is, a close analogy is probably when you look at the Clone Wars. And this is why,
Okay.
because as you know, his hand was super heavy on the prequels, right? And some people feel one way about it, another way, but they can't deny that that was his vision, right? He was all
Yeah.
over it, right? Now, what were the Clone Wars? The Clone Wars, George Lucas like kind of produced it, but he didn't, right? It was obviously Filoni, right? So his
Yeah.
baby, right? But
I think that's a good
right?
analogy.
Yeah,
I
that's a
think
good
that's a good
analogy, right?
analogy. Yeah.
Because that whole team moving forward was not a George Lucas story, but it pulled from the mythos that George Lucas put together, right? So basically, Filoni was being very, very
It
respectful,
followed the
yeah,
spirit.
and
Followed the
from
spirit.
everything coming from George Lucas's vision, but it was obviously his team doing the Clone Wars, and people love the Clone Wars. People love it for what it is, right?
And you still have to
Right.
watch it.
Well, that is true. See, like, but see, I'm an old school Star Wars fan. So I'm not going to watch that. I'm a Lucas guy, right? So I'm not going to watch that. But the thing is, like, I understand why people love it, but in my mind, that it's still separate from Star Wars. It's still separate from what I grew up with, which is a George Lucas Star Wars joint, right? So I'm not saying it's worse or bad or horrible. I'm just saying that it's different, right? And so that's why
Yeah.
when I see people getting super excited about Ultra Instinct, I don't have a problem with it because, like you said, like Akira Toriyama probably invented Ultra Instinct, right? But the thing is, when you see it on the screen and when you see like Super doing it in Super, I can't watch it without thinking like, but this is not a Toriyama joint, right?
Yeah, I think also too it becomes even more evident in the manga too, right? Because I mean, if anyone that actually got to read through the super manga, there were like some key differences in there in regards to the anime and stuff like that. One being Master Roshi pretty much getting Ultra Instinct. So there were like certain things in there that you can tell like was definitely. I mean, Toyotaro obviously like leaded it, but you can you can kind of like see the differences between Toyotaro and Akira Toriyama. Um, I think probably even more so in the manga. But
Hey, emoji, really quick. You know what's crazy, John? You kind of blew
mhm.
my mind when you were talking about like the Hawaiian influences, right? Because it makes sense now that Master Roshi, who was always wearing those Hawaiian shirts, would name his move Kamehameha, right? Like that's crazy to me. I never even picked up on that.
It's true. I didn't even think about that.
I mean, that's why they're on islands, like a Hawaiian island.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah. No, that's dope insight, John. I appreciate that. Um, and yeah, I mean stuff like that. Honestly, like I don't mind, changes, like minor changes and stuff like that to kind of like make it so that way people in the states can understand it. My biggest issue has always been, especially like the huge changes, specifically with anime, like in the '90s, where the whole spirit, like characters, would be lost in the animation. Like that was a big thing, even with Dragon Ball Z. A lot of people didn't understand what type of character Goku was, is because the way that he was portrayed in Dragon Ball Z was different from how he actually was, like in the manga, and just in the source, and even in the dub, right, in the source material. So that for me like was the biggest thing, but it's gotten a lot better since that. And going back to like with what Omiwan was saying, the manga that we're getting, and what John was saying, it's a good reference point. I mean, you don't have to learn Japanese, to kind of like experience the true stories at this point, Um, and if there are tweaks, it's more so kind of like just so that way we can still make sense of some of the cultural
Yeah,
references and
like
things like that.
Ultraman, the one that's dropped in, guys, it's too late. I mean, it's like it started in the '60s. Like, if you didn't grow
Hmm.
up with it, man, it's just gonna be like, why would I get into this? And no one expects you to get into this, man. It's okay if you don't like jive with like Ultraman because look,
Yeah, I never followed Ultraman. I mean,
it's hard.
because
It's
it's like
hard.
it's so old.
I'll
Mhm,
I'll give you the cultural lifeline, okay? And so maybe
mhm.
this will help a little bit. So what Ultraman was almost like
It reminds me of like Super Sentai
yeah, yeah,
or
and
Power
Sentai
Rangers.
came later on, right? But it almost came
Hmm.
from Godzilla, right? So Godzilla is the OG,
Mm.
all right? And so you would have these
Hmm.
gigantic monsters, and like no one could fight these giant monsters because we're all tiny little people, right? And so at the end of the day, it was the Superman problem, which is you had no one able to actually fight the monster, right? And so what
Hmm.
Ultraman represented was okay, we're going to be able to inhabit this character because this character is half human, right? So this is a Japanese human being who basically gets possessed by an alien that is just gigantic alien, right? And so he
Hmm.
transforms into Ultraman, but his alter ego is actually just a normal Japanese human dude, right? And so it's almost like this alter ego idea that you can see Ultraman as like the masked hero of this normal dude who you as the viewer can associate with more, right? So you feel like rooting for Ultraman more because he has literally a human side to him, right? And so but Ultraman is big enough and powerful enough to actually stand against like the Godzilla level type of monsters, like the ones that are like
Hmm.
30 billion stories tall and all that, right? So like Ultraman has that power and that ability to do that. So Ultraman's formula was an evolution off of Godzilla's kind of like detrimental parts, right? And so that took off and that did very well. But then the whole idea of having like a masked identity, which was firmly established in the Western world, as we all know, right? Because Batman, Superman, and
Hmm.
all the rest of that, like they were like, okay, we need to still be more identifiable, but still have these fun action scenes. Like, what are we gonna do? And then they go into like you just said, emoji, which is the Sentai series, right? So Kamen Rider came out.
Hmm.
Now Kamen Rider was huge, right? Kamen Rider was huge, but it didn't translate well over to America. Why not? Because you had like this kind of bug dude riding a motorcycle, and it makes no sense. It makes no sense to us, right? But in Japan, it makes complete sense, right? Because it's the same thing where like it's a normal looking dude who's kind of a little rebellious, and he rides a motorcycle, and he's like this kind of kind of cool Marlon Brando type of guy, right? Like a wild one kind of guy, like a James Dean kind of guy. So he's cool because he's riding a motorcycle. But when he needs to fight above his punching weight, he touches his like super belt, right? That has like this device that helps him transform into that bug looking hero, and then he can actually kick some ass, right? And so and but he uses martial art moves, but they're kind of superpowers martial art moves. So it's relatable to Japanese audiences, and it's only one step away, and it's actually more relatable than Ultraman is, right? So Kamen Rider to this day is hugely popular in Japan. Hugely popular in Japan. Now from Kamen Rider, now here comes the fun part, guys. In Japan, Kamen Rider was already a thing. The kids already liked watching these Sentai shows, but we wanted to, in the Western world, and wanted to introduce ourselves into Japan somehow. And so we're like, well, we have this Spider-Man IP. Can we get the Spider-Man stuff in front of kids? And then the Japanese people were all like, it won't work here. It won't. Like, Spider-Man is not relatable enough to Japanese kids and Japanese audiences. So we need to Japanify it. And so they made Spider-Man into basically Kamen Rider. So that's why the Japanese Spider-Man rides a motorcycle. That's why the Japanese Spider-Man has a wristwatch that does the same thing that Kamen Rider's belt does, which is transform you into the superhero. And the one evolution which made the Sentai into a Super Sentai was that because Spider-Man in the Japanese lore is an alien from outer space, he has a effing spaceship. And that spaceship transforms into a giant robot. So what you get for the very first time in Japanese history,
Yeah, that's gonna sell crazy. Yeah, I know that sold crazy
right?
toys.
So yeah, and it did. So for the very first time in Japanese history, you had a Kamen Rider type of superhero, but it had a giant transforming robot too, right? And then Spider-Man would jump into his robot, and then he would kick some ass, right, with these gigantic like Ultraman level monsters, right? So Spider-Man Sentai was basically an evolution of everything I just told you about, and one level more. So Spider-Man is actually the first Super Sentai show, believe it or not. All Japan will admit it's the first Super Sentai show. And then after that, because
Really?
it got
Wow.
off and it did so well, they were like, you know what would be great if instead of having one Spider-Man, we had like
Let's make
5
5.
Spider-Mans, right? And so then they started having team Super Sentai shows where they would all have their own kind of color and their own kind of like thing going on, but they would all have their own
And it.
robots, right? And so that's how you kind of ended up with the Super Sentai shows that you have now, which you guys know as Power Rangers.
Which then came full circle as Power
Right. So that's where
Rangers.
that.
Which
Yeah,
I don't know if people know that, but like with Power Rangers, I mean, yes, we had the American actors, but like all the fighting scenes and stuff like that, those were actually just taken from Super
that's
Sentai.
correct. Yeah, all the martial
So
arts,
like
everything.
you 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 had like these American actors that acted this stuff out, and then all the like fight like when they transformed into Rangers and stuff like that, that was actually a different show that they just meshed into one and gave us Power Rangers.
Yep. And here's the funny thing. In Western audiences, guys, you have something called Voltron, right? And we have it on Veve, right? You know what Voltron is? Voltron is a Super Sentai show that goes backwards and is an anime of basically the same formula of a Super Sentai show. Because what is Voltron? Voltron is 5 characters with their own giant robots that combine
Form together and
a
make a
robot.
Megazord.
That's a Super Sentai show, right? And so
Yeah,
Voltron wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Spider-Man. Isn't that interesting?
that's
Yeah,
crazy. That's an interesting fact. I did not know that. I knew about this the Spider-Man Sentai form, but I didn't know that came first. So That's interesting. John, actually, let me ask you this, because I know the Ultraman is going to be the first one to launch. But out of all the manga, is there anything that you're specifically looking for or excited for or hope to come to the platform so you can start collecting?
Well, I took a look. I mean, there's possible realistic and there's possible unrealistic, right? So the realistic is like what we just discussed, that you pinned up atop. That was
Hmm.
been released in fall. Like I think we talked about Kaiju #8. I really actually
Yeah.
would be excited to see that. I am also following.
Have you been watching
I
Kaiju
have
number
been.
eight?
It's good. It's really fun.
Me too. I really like it. I really like
I
it
mean,
a
I don't
lot.
want to spoil it, but guys, it's a twist, and it's a very like from episode 1, it's a very unexpected twist, and it gives me those kind
Mhm.
of Chainsaw Man vibes, but less depressing.
I like this better than
Yeah, it's
Chainsaw
more
Man,
more
to be
fun. It's
honest.
more Sentai. Like so. I agree with you. I think that this is going to be a runaway hit, and Viz is
Hmm.
very smart to leverage it by putting it out there, and Vivi would be very smart to choose that as one of their first like simul releases. That would do well. I think it would do well,
Yeah.
and you would
Didn't
actually probably get American audiences, like actual
yeah.
the guys who fill up like the anime cons like by the thousands. They might come to Vivi for that if you give them a contemporary thing like Kaiju #8 to collect. Because there isn't enough out there.
I
And this
think
is
so.
the biggest problem since the beginning of time, guys. We global audience people do not have enough official licensed stuff to consume. We don't have enough. And so if Viz provides, I mean, like through Vivi, a way to digitally own some of this stuff, people will get it. I
Hmm.
actually think people will come and get it. So that's probably the best bet. Now, nostalgic wise, the one that was announced in the fall that I would like the most, like personally, but I know it wouldn't be a big draw, so probably Vivi wouldn't carry it, would be Kiki's Delivery Service. I saw that,
Okay.
and I'm like, well, that's Studio Ghibli. I raised my kids on that movie, basically. It tells like
Hmm.
beautiful life lessons for like middle-aged kids and middle school kids, and I'm like, yeah, I would love to see Kiki on Vivi. It would be crazy. But I don't
Hmm.
think it's coming. I don't think it's coming because
I think I think those movie mangas are would be cool things to do because they're kind of like self-contained, right? Um, and especially on onboarding or getting new people to check it out, it's like you don't have to kind of like overwhelm them with volumes and volumes of stuff. You can kind of be like, all right, you can check out this to read. So I would like that. I would like that and a few others. I would like your name on there. Um,
yeah, like all the
what you would call
ones
it.
like Your Name is Suzune and Weathering with You and things like that. Are those by Viz though? I don't think that's a Viz joint.
Oh, you know what? You might be
I think
right.
it's
I
a
don't
G Kid.
know. Actually, don't. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But I mean, okay. Even with the Studio Ghibli stuff, that so Studio Ghibli is with Viz. You're saying?
Well, it looks like there's something on the menu for fall that is Studio Ghibli.
Okay.
The funny thing is though, they used to never put out stuff, right? And then Disney kind of pried that back open in the '90s, thankfully. And actually, even Regal Cinemas. I don't know if people catch this, but during the summer, they run a Ghibli Fest. So you can watch Kiki on the big screen. You can watch Nachika on the big screen. You can watch all these Ghibli movies on the big screen. And this is a great way to reintroduce the Western audiences into these amazing films the way they were meant to be seen. You know what I used to have to do back in the
Mhm.
day? I had to watch La Pieta Castle in the Sky in freaking MoMA because it used to be considered an art house film. So I would have to go out of my way to go to a museum and go to their basement and watch it with like a couple other hardcore like indie foreign film fans and then just watch this thing that was the only way to see it. So people are spoiled now. And if you don't even want to see it on the
Mhm.
big screen, you can go stream all of these right now on HBO Max. They're all over there. So right now
That's
the
true.
exposure to these beautiful films are nonstop if you want. And I would love to see this also enter into the NFT sphere somehow to have like more of a permanent possession over these pieces for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and going back to what you were saying as far as even with the collecting side of it, and I was saying this like earlier in space that's one of the biggest reasons why I've been holding off on collecting the amount of manga that I would like to is because I didn't want to start building a huge collection in a digital format that's just exclusively digital, right? So like, because right now, I can buy, the digital volumes of whatever I want, Dragon Ball or whatever, directly through Viz, right? Or I can get it through Amazon or all these other digital platforms. But like, there's no collectability in that, right? Like, you have it to read, which is nice, but it doesn't have the same collectability that you would from from like an NFT or a digital collectible. So the thing that kind of like held me back from buying up all of those, especially the ones that I want to read, because like I said, I do really want to read through Tokyo Ghoul, um, was because of the hope or the prospect that these things would be coming as NFTs, right? And hopefully would be coming to the VV platform. So now that we are getting Viz through the platform, it now for me opens up a whole journey of now I can actually start collecting some of this stuff that I've been wanting to collect for a very long time, but just waiting for the ideal medium to do so.
Yeah, I just hope that some of those legacy IPs are still, under contract with this, where they can actually release some of the older stuff, and that would be great, because of course, why
Hmm.
wouldn't you want Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z and Bleach and Naruto and all the other things in One Piece, of course, that
Hmm.
Viz used to have like week to week allowances to put out. But again, I don't know.
Are they no longer on the app, like on the Viz
Well,
Media app?
that's the thing. I don't know if they are allowed to allow another company to come in and create new content for. They might have it. They might have a contract to allow to distribute what they already had the right to distribute, but to create new stuff and make new
Uh-huh.
money off of that, I don't know if they have the ability to do that. But again, I don't know. I can't say either way. But I wouldn't be surprised if they may have.
You said Inuyasha was under the Gainax
Oh no,
deal?
no. Inuyasha was Shogokukan, so that was under that deal with Viz back in the
Oh,
late
okay.
'80s and early '90s. Um, but Gainax also had Evangelion on Viz through their own deal. So that definitely was a thing through Viz. So yeah, we could get Evangelion too, but we may have to wait a bit because again through bankruptcy, I believe that
Yeah, because
Studio
I'm
is going to
looking
get
through the
those.
Viz. I'm looking through the Viz app right
Yeah.
now. I'm looking through the Viz app right now, and I'm not seeing Evangelion
Oh,
there.
they took it off, or they may not have even had
But
it. Yeah. See, but that's a perfect
hold
example,
on.
emoji. That shows that things don't belong to them in perpetuity. There absolutely could have been like a termination date on some of these contracts where they no longer are able to distribute older IP after a certain date. It would be released, and so they could, have a deal with somebody else, right? Or it could be structured so that you could only put out what
Yeah.
we agreed for you to put out. We did not agree for
Oh
you.
wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Correction.
Oh, you
Correction.
found it?
Correction. I was looking up Evangelion. I didn't look up Neon Genesis. It
Oh,
is still
okay.
there. It
There
is
you go.
still there
So yeah, yeah. So that I knew they put out
because it's
comic
in
books.
alphabetical order, so I didn't type in
Yeah.
Neon Genesis.
So the fact that it's on there is hopeful, you know, at least they can have out there what they had out there. Now, the question is, will they be able to put out there what isn't yet out there? And that would be the VV NFTs, right? And so, like, the fact that we get Ultraman doesn't actually give us information because Ultraman is right now, it's simulcast basically, right? So they could have, through their negotiation with that production company, I forgot it's a very long Japanese name, who owns Ultraman. Like, I think it's called Subiasa. So with that deal, Subiasa could have been like okay with having the Viz deal happen too, right? Because they have a prior relationship with Vivi, so they're cool with it. So you might not be able to make a deal with Viz if the original owner of the IP doesn't also agree. And that is what we don't know exists or not yet to this point when it comes to Gainax titles and when it comes to Shokugan titles and so on.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was saying too. As far as it's like a ladder, it's a higher up. So like even with Viz, I mean Viz is really just the West Coast distributor, right? But you still would have to go through Shueisha. You still have to go through the actual owners of the company because in Japan, like you retain your rights. Like it's not like over here where you can just give your rights away. So like as Dragon Ball is a reference, that's owned by Akira Toriyama's company Bird Studios. So everything still has to go through Bird Studios regardless of any type of medium that you want to put it out in.
Yeah, so that remains to be seen whether or not through Viz, Vivi will be able to put out the titles that we are expecting to see. Look, we all know what we want, but we also know why it's so hard to get it. And I get that Vivi is banging on those doors, trying to break down those walls, but it has proven to be even more difficult to pry loose than music publishing, which is crazy because music publishing, uh, I used to think would probably be the last thing to fall. So the fact that they had, the South Korean music industry loosen up a bit, and now some Western publishing companies are starting to talk to them because of that, is what they said, right? That would be amazing, right? Like in other words, a deal with Geffen or a deal with like those kind of guys would be way in advance of what I thought Vivi could do. So kudos to that being a possibility. And yet here we are on the cusp of possibly getting breakthrough in the Japanese anime publishing industry, which I'll be the first to raise my hand and go, I never thought it would happen. I never thought it would happen. And yet, why would I think that when Crunchyroll was able to do it,
I was just gonna
and
wonder that.
and
Why do you think it
Viz
was
were
never
able to do
never
it?
happened?
And here's why I didn't think it would be able to happen, because Viz had an ancient relationship with them, right, since the 80s, right? And Crunchyroll almost as ancient, right? And I haven't been able to see too many Johnny Come Latelys come around to be able to establish something, because Japan tends to move at iceberg pace. The last time that they were fast and furious with this stuff, honestly, was like the 80s and early 90s. And they tend to be generationally loyal, right? That's the way they kind of are. And so as long as Viz doesn't screw up, like Japan will keep feeding Viz primarily, right? And as long as Crunchyroll doesn't screw up, that's how we're gonna get our simulcasts, right? Like uh, it, it's weird that it feels like a monopoly because of that, but Japan has gotten burned so many times by fly by night companies promising them world and then putting out bastardized versions of their IP that they're done with them.
20th Century
Yeah, they're
Fox.
done with them, right? And so when they
Yeah.
find someone they trust, they go all in on that trust, and they close the doors behind them, right? So that's why it's really difficult for newer companies like Vivi to get any traction at all. And so it is actually very compelling that Vivi was able to even make a deal with Viz, because Viz understands its position in the industry. Believe me, they know. And so for the fact that they are allowing Vivi in on any other action means that Viz is saying to themselves, we're not willing to make our own in-house NFTs. That's really the message everyone should be getting here. Is like, we are outsourcing this. And
No.
if that
No.
yeah,
Go ahead.
and
Go ahead.
that would be amazing for Vivi. You know why? Because we saw it happen with Marvel, right? And we saw it in a small part with Disney before Disney started doing Toys and all the other places. We found out Disney's too big to hold down to one company, right? Obviously, but Marvel's like, yeah, we're not putting out our NFTs. Like, we got Vivi. Why not just like give it all to them? And it has worked, right? In some ways, that relationship probably encouraged Viz to open its doors a little. They're like, who are we as a company to say no when Marvel is freaking doing it, right? So I can just imagine the pitch in my head, and if we end up getting the kind of level and exposure that Marvel gives to Vivi through, and don't forget, Marvel gives legacy titles to Vivi too, right? It's not just the new stuff. Like, we get like freaking Amazing Fantasy 15. We get the old good stuff too, right? So if Viz is in a position to allow Vivi to put out the old good stuff, so to speak, you're going to see eyeballs pop out of their heads, and it could be really good for Vivi. So we'll see what happens.
Yo, that was the biggest thing as far as like that I thought, because like I said, like I was always thinking, or how are they gonna do this, because it's so different from even on the Western side with the Marvel things as far as with the comics, but even with the aspect, all right, like Marvel Unlimited, right? They have their own service, Marvel Unlimited. You can, it's a subscription fee and things like that. But with Viz, you have your subscription fee where you can read it, but you can also still buy it at the same time, right? It's kind of like it's an all in one, 3 apps. But like you can subscribe to it. You can buy the volumes there, right, on it. and you can build your collection that way. So John, you brought up a good point, right? As far as, well, okay, then why use Vivi? Why use Vivi to make these NFTs if you kind of like have everything in house where you can theoretically just do it on your own, which the fact that they are shows a high level of trust. Um, and it makes me want to wonder as far as what's going to be kind of like unique about this, or different, because it's kind of like, you know um when you buy it, right? Like, what's going to make people start. I know for me, what's going to make me start buying it on VV is because I want them as collectibles, right? I specifically want them as NFTs, right? That's what's going to make me buy it. But the fact that you can still buy it on Viz, the standard version, uh it's going to be like I guess for the main audience, you're going to have to kind of like sell that point,
Yeah,
right?
like I'll tell you, Emoji, the
um
one of the big
yeah.
selling points that's not here yet, and I would
Hmm.
love it for it to be here, but is not yet. Is something that Tails alluded to a while back, and I see Tails here as a listener, but I'm not a beta. I'm not a beta tester, but I understand that in the VV-verse, the beta testers currently can take comic books and display them with the collectibles, right? And so,
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
like, just imagine this future, guys. If you can take the the first moment where Goku turns Super Saiyan, right? And and take that interior panel and blow that up in the Viverse the size of the Empire State Building, and then have all your collectibles act as a montage in front of that like badass moment. And you wake up in the morning and go, I want to go visit this shrine to Goku that I just made. And you go into the VV verse and you see this thing. That is something that Viz cannot provide you right now, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so VV does have a good advantage. Oh, and then also,
Like
of
those
course,
virtual
AR, right? And then you can
experiences.
put an AR, put
Hmm.
Goku like the size of the actual Empire State Building, and go take that when you're being a tourist here in the New York City. So there's things that VV can provide that I'm sure they pitch to Viz, and Viz goes, "That's too much for us to develop in house. You already are doing it well. Let me give you the distribution flowing through us in order for you to make that happen for our
That's
audience."
true.
That could happen.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I think the whole that whole visual element, a special virtual element and environment, that's a huge selling point right there too, especially as it gets rolled out more. I do have a question though for you, John. Right? So depending on what we get, and like I said, most likely we probably are going to get the volumes. That's what I see us getting, the volumes. But hypothetically, right? If you had your choice, if you could pick between whether you would want the let's take Dragon Ball as a reference, right? If you wanted as a collectible the Shonen Jump magazine, the 1984 December 1984 Shonen Jump magazine, first appearance of Goku, versus Volume 1 of Dragon Ball, which one would you want?
I mean, as a collector, you want the Shonen
Hmm.
Jump, right?
Hmm.
As a reader, you want the Tankobon, and
Hmm.
that's it. Like, if you want to actually read the story, you want to have it in, like, say, the VV app reader, because the reader is actually quite nice. I don't know if you guys have been reading comic books in that
Oh,
app.
of course, of
It's
course.
actually quite pleasant, right? I do that every Wednesday morning on the way to work. I read Ultimate X-Men, the newest episode that comes out, a newest issue, and I mean, it's awesome. You can download it. You can be in your freaking, like, there's no Wi-Fi. It doesn't matter. You can read it, right, at your leisure. It's a great experience. So if you,
Yo, we've been doing that for the comic shop, bro. You got to come
I
by.
should, I absolutely
We review the
I don't
comics,
think I've been to one yet,
huh?
Emoji. I definitely have to swing by, especially when you guys do Ultimate X-Men. I really have to.
Well, you're going to be a special reviewer for that.
I'll be more than happy to share my insights when I'm there. And but let me tell you, that experience is a
Hmm.
good experience. And I'm like
Yeah.
you. I do not have my FUD hat on right now. I'm taking the FUD hat off, and I'm telling you for real, that app experience is a good experience. Okay, now
Yeah.
how do you want to read that? You don't want to read that Shonen Jump style. That's crazy because it's jumping all. It probably even has chapters of like old ancient 1984 anime you don't care about. Like, that's getting in the way. You don't want that stuff in the way.
Hmm.
And also, you know what it looks like? It's on green paper. It's not an attractive artistic like aesthetic pleasing look. It's literally on like like a telephone book like pulp paper. It's not good, right? So it's much
Mm-hmm.
better to have it in like glossy black and white tankobon, like compendium paper, and you know what? Because it's Vivi, you don't have to even stay with the original tankobon chapter books. You can just have the damn Cell Saga all in one gigantic like 3,000 pager. You know what I mean? Give me the whole damn thing for $20. I'll buy it from you. You know what I mean? Give me the whole Majin Buu saga for $25. I'll buy it from you. And let me sit down and read hundreds of pages in one sitting. Flip, 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 flip. Like zoom in. Ooh, that was a good part. Flip, flip, flip. Give that to me, and I own it.
Really
Right?
quick, John.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if in the reader app it's going to read the way manga is traditionally supposed to be read, right? Not left to right, right to left.
I would hope so. I feel if they don't do that, that's a disservice.
Yeah. They had to go. They had to go right to left, not left to
Yeah.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then across and down, right to left. That is correct. Hey, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember this, but old Viz titles used to do it both ways, where it was crazy, where
Oh,
they would
really?
print them twice. So you would have it like left to right for American audiences, and then you would flip the
Mm-hmm.
book upside down, and it would have the same thing, but then you would read it the Japanese way, and then all of the
So I guess it was double. It was double the
yeah, it was like
size.
double the size, and then you could read it properly, and then all the panels would actually follow the same like kind of like pathway as an actual manga would. And so Vivi used to really go above and beyond, back in the pulp days, right? So obviously, I don't think they do that anymore. Provide you both ways. But yeah, they used to do that because they understood audiences were wanting that, right? Because who was buying back then? And I said this in the back channels emoji. It wasn't little kids, right? It was college age kids to young adults. These are the guys who first discovered anime and manga in the late 80s, early 90s, because they found it at their college clubs, right? They found it at
Mm-hmm.
like their art house films. They found it as like indie stuff, right? And so those guys, they were purists, right? Because they
Mm-hmm.
saw it, they didn't see it as a casual hobby. They saw it as like almost like Ansel Adams black and white photography. It has its own cult following, right? Like there's a specific way that, it must be presented for you to fully enjoy what it is, right? You have to understand the
Mm-hmm.
context and the behaviors of the creator to understand why I'm seeing it the way I'm seeing it. Like people got really into this stuff, believe me, right? I think the latest that I've seen that, and it's disappeared now, but the last time I really saw that was Junji Ito. And I want to talk about Junji Ito for a second because I saw that it was in the Viz fall lineup. Junji Ito is still around, right? And people don't know who Junji Ito is. Like one of the wildest, craziest, kid inappropriate horror genre manga artists out there. It just hardcore, right? But the people who like, and not even a great artist, right? But the stories and the way that is shown and displayed, it is truly, it is like horrific, but it is like it it's operating at high art level, right? I would not put this as lowbrow at all. I would put this as is like this kind of stuff is the kind of stuff that ends up in museums and galleries kind of level stuff. Junji Ito is firing on all cylinders. I highly respect, this creator, and I don't even like horror, but I respect, what Junji Ito is doing, and the fact that Viz is putting out Junji Ito stuff is highly commendable, right? And so, like to me, that remains in the original spirit of what Viz was trying to do when Viz was first bringing stuff over, which was let me expose the Western audience to what actually is cool in Japan and what people in Japan actually care about, right? And so everything you guys are getting is curated for every title that you get that's on Viz that's translated for your pleasure. There's 30 billion other manga and anime that you will never see. That like Viz has decided, man, like I don't think the audiences are gonna get it, or the audiences aren't gonna care about it. Believe me, there are some bad ones out there, and not bad as in good bad. We're talking bad as in mid bad, right? Like there's tons of crap on the cutting room floor of Japan, like you don't need to see, and it's stupid and it's dumb, and like Viz does a pretty good job picking good titles, right? Like there was one recently, Doctor Stone. I love Doctor Stone,
I love
right?
Doctor
Dr.
Stone
Stone was
too.
a beautiful
Yep.
story. It was so
Hmm.
um like nostalgic but like powerful. It was just, and the art was beautiful. It was just like so great. Like I'm like Viz did a great job in
I
choosing.
learned a lot of science lessons from that that show.
And also that particular artist did Sun Ken
Hmm.
Rock before it, which I love
Yeah.
because I'm Korean, and so it was all about this Korean who went to Japan, kicked ass, came back to Korea, and then the Japanese came after. It was just a wild story about this whole Japanese Korean thing that like
Hmm.
could be considered controversial in Japan, but it was just really tastefully done, right? And so I even like that earlier story, Sunken Rock. You should definitely check it out if you can. I don't think Viz picked that up, but
Okay.
Viz picked up the later title that same creator did, which was Doctor Stone, and it was beautiful. I loved it. So there you go. Like, just understand that Viz it cares a lot about its position in the industry. It understands its position in the industry, and the main thing they want to do is not piss off the people in Japan. So understand that they don't enter a deal with Vivi lightly. They're not going to
Hmm.
bring in a crap company to piss off the generations old relationship they have with the people in Japan. So like kudos to David Yu making that happen. Really, really, it's
Hmm.
amazing that it's happening. But if you ask me personally, am I going to pick up this first time? I probably not. Because it's
Hmm.
modern Ultraman. I don't really follow it.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not really a
So
fan
I
of
will
it.
wait and remain to see whether or not like the Kaiju number eights come, or the Ghibli stuff comes, or the Junji Ito's come. Like I will absolutely, be picking those kind of things up if they come.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, even for me, like I really want to pick up Tokyo Ghoul. Not even because I'm much of a Tokyo Ghoul fan. It's just because of the reviews for it and how like this is literally a prime example of how the manga is vastly superior than the anime. So I kind of I want to see that, but yeah, I mean, touching on what you were saying as far as with the companies having power, we saw an example of that even with 20th Century Fox, right? When with the Dragon Ball Evolution movie, and how that went, and ultimately, 20th Century Fox not being able to put out another live action movie as a result of that. So, I mean, it just goes to show, like, it is a lot of responsibility or onus put on Viz, as far as bringing, making sure that the IP is respected, making sure that the owners of the IP, which is the author, right, the person that created it, also is in agreement how you're handling it, and to go with this deal with Vivi and stuff like that also shows a high level of confidence, because literally at the drop of a dime, everything could be stripped away because the owners have that much authority over their IP.
Hey, Emoji, I love this talk, and I got to take off. I got to actually go to a dentist appointment right now. Got to hop on the subway. But before I leave, I just want to pin up on
Hmm.
top the thing that Max just posted up, which was the fact that his kids love Junji Ito. See, this is what I'm talking about, Emoji. Like
Hmm.
this is contemporary stuff. This is cutting edge stuff.
I
Yeah,
love
if
this.
if and you get the kind of hint, like obviously I love Peach Momoko. People don't Most people don't know that she got her start in horror, right? So a lot of her horror illustration,
Hmm.
like she just put out some amazing Tool concert posters that are reminiscent of her earlier horror illustration work, just letting you.
I feel like a lot of her stuff kind of like alludes to like her horror
Oh,
stuff, even like with the Ultimate X-Men.
now that she has gotten more fame and more, like, she could pull more weight in Marvel, I believe she's been
Hmm.
able to stretch out a bit more. They gave her carte blanche. Like, she recently put out Nightmare variants. If you look at her Nightmare variants in Marvel, that's what her work used to look like, right? And so she
Hmm.
felt like earlier on that she had to cater more to like the superhero stuff. But the funny thing is, the way that she did her superhero stuff was not superhero. It was like, we could discuss this later on, obviously, but it was more of like,
Hmm.
kind of like, how do I put this? More of like, I can't even say it. It's like younger kitty. anime manga type of style. I think that's why I had to put it, right?
Mhm.
And so she does that chibi kind of stuff, okay, and it's very cute, but that's not where her heart is.
Like you're talking about like Doraemon, like younger, or
Not that young. I would put it more
okay,
because she grew up more with stuff like Rosa Versailles, stuff like that. You know,
okay,
so
okay,
it's more like young girls. Like actually, did you ever see that?
like a shojo.
Kind of like shoujo manga, but did you ever see that title that they did for Giant Size Gwen Stacy? I'll post it up a little later on if I find it on the way to the dentist. But like
Okay,
that style that she did for Giant Size Gwen Stacy, that's what she grew up with, right? And so that
got
kind of
it.
style is what she was drawing from in order to make those Marvel titles, right? And so that's why what you end up seeing is kind of cutesy, kind of fun, and kind of light, um, but it's not her original work. Her original work is much more darker, more morbid, more in the grotesque and stuff like that. And and now you're starting to see it come out. Like, and actually, the perfect hybrid of it, emoji, and I really have to go, but
Hmm.
like you're gonna have spaces on it later. If I don't jump in, please, bring this up. Ultimate X-Men, this run I feel is like peak work for her, because this is like
Hmm.
bringing everything into it that she is pulled from the last couple of like years. She's been on the this whole thing for like a decade now, guys. I don't think people
Hmm.
understand that she's not fly by night. She's been doing this for over 10 years, right? And so like it is almost like the culmination of everything. And these are not light subject matters either. And I'm not just talking about the art style, the writing too. Like
Hmm.
episode 1, like her best friend committed suicide, and the enemy, the mysterious enemy, is literally killing off the people who
The
drove him,
bullies.
to the suicide
Yeah.
via suicide, right? So it's almost like a Heather's kind of thing, right? And so like you see all this playing out and you're like, oh my God, this is really heavy work for a freaking X
Hmm.
title, like a mainstream X title, right? And so
Yeah.
but she would never have been able to be given the green light even for the subject matter, and regardless of like the artistic manner in which she's portraying it, if she did not get enough political capital and goodwill leading up into this title. I mean, CB Sabuski reached out to her in Paris, France, when she was there for the Marvel Atelier. When she was teaching other artists how to like do her style and stuff like that. Uh,
Hmm.
CB actually reached out to her there personally and said, "Can you take charge of the X title in this new Ultimate series?" Right. So that's how much Marvel cares about her. Right. So it's very, very respectful. Um, and and like, oh man, I could keep going on and on, but I'll just say, like, not that she can do no wrong right now, but she is given
Yeah.
carte blanche at this point to do whatever she wants, and
Hmm.
what she wants to do is what you're seeing in Ultimate X-Men, which we may actually never see again. So enjoy it for what it
Okay.
is, because it is not a typical comic book put out by Marvel. I cannot think of the last time we got something this seriously artistic since, like what I was talking about, like Frank Miller, putting out the Dark Knight Returns. That
Hmm.
was like a
Hmm.
comic breaking milestone moment in the freaking 80s, and we're still talking about it now. I think we're kind of experiencing something like that now in a moment, and we're not even understanding what this moment is right now.
And especially like it's such a big series because this Ultimate series is
It's
big,
big. It's
right?
big. And
And her art is a
I
standout.
hate to say it, but it already leapfrogged over Ultimate Black Panther, which came out before Ultimate X-Men. I think it's only second banana to one title, and one title only, which is Ultimate Spider-Man.
Ultimate
Ultimate
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's top dog is number one.
Hmm.
It's breaking all the records. I mean, and you know why it's breaking all the records? Because it's doing the exact opposite of. I'm going to be late for this meeting, but it's the exact opposite of what Peach Momoko is doing with the X-Men. Because what
Uh-huh.
Ultimate Spider-Man is doing is it's giving the most conventional story they ever told, which is he's just a family man with kids and he has a good life and nothing bad happens to him and superheroing is not going to bother him, and like it literally is giving you the opposite of the decades of what you
Hmm.
expect Spider-Man to be, and that is actually considered revolutionary because Peter Parker for decades has been put through it. You know what I'm saying? And so
Hmm.
that's why it stands out, because it's such a non-risk. Compare that to Ultimate
Yeah.
X-Men, which is taking the most suicide. There's not even freaking Magneto or Professor X in this yet. We don't even know if a
Yeah.
team's going to
Yeah.
capture. So it is so crazy, right? And she's out there on such a limb and a cliff right now, and just dancing on that line. I'd love to see it. It's beautiful. But I really, really got to go. I'm going to drop down to
All right,
listener while I run
John,
to
we're
the
gonna
sink.
talk about it. We got you. We got you for the comic shop for that
I
thing.
will
So we
try.
be able to
I
talk
will
more.
try, emoji. All
And
right, take care, everyone. Bye.
all right, peace. We got MC and we got O'Malley. MC was good, bro. How you doing?
Hey guys, I don't have much time because I got to go back to work and stuff. But Vivi just did an
Mm-hmm.
announcement, and I don't want to take away
Oh,
from the conversation because it's awesome, but it has nothing to
Beep,
do
beep,
with your
beep, beep, beep,
conversation.
beep.
So check it out. I think it's a pretty big one. I think people are going to like it.
it's
But
the payout one,
what's
right?
that?
The payout.
Yeah, in case
The
you haven't
payout.
seen it yet.
Okay, I'm pinning it to the top.
Yeah,
I'm pinning it to
I
the
got to
top.
go back to my thing, but I just wanted to throw that out there. So in case you guys hadn't seen it yet.
Appreciate that. Appreciate you for coming through, and also appreciate the Vivi handle, and appreciate Justin and the audience too, for coming through and
Oh,
showing support.
100%. I mean,
Uh,
be awesome space, great combo, and I just love it, guys. So I'm also running into a meeting too, but cheers.
Let's go, MC.
no worries, no worries.
Yeah, thanks, O'Milly.
Yeah,
Emoji,
you know
what's
what I'm gonna
up?
do? I'm gonna.
Omi1, John, everybody in the crowd. I just come up
What's
for the
up, bro?
breaking news, man. I love what you guys are doing in this space. No one told me the space was live. I'm pissed, but I'm so happy that you guys are having this. There's nothing like listening to nerds nerd out about what they love. I always say that. I wish we could get more spaces about anything people are into, just for us to have more content, you know. And I just want to appreciate you guys for that. So just had to come give you some flowers.
I appreciate that, O'Milly. Yeah, you know what I'm gonna do because I actually really, really like this conversation, and I regret I didn't record it. But what I'll do is I'll pull the recording from like the X archives, and I'll probably just post this on my YouTube, so that way people, if you missed the beginning part, you can dial back, to check that out. But yeah, thanks for coming through. Actually, I want to see this new payout. So we got some new payout information from Vivi. Payout update. We're thrilled to announce that from today, we're lowering the minimum gym balance requirement used to payout feature required to use the payout feature to 100 gyms, down from the 500 gym requirement. Other requirements for payout haven't changed. Find out more at the blog, and there's a link there that you can check that out. So okay, so it looks like no longer $500 gym limit. You only need $100 worth of gyms, and then you can access payout. So that's what's up. That's what's up. Cool, cool. Oh man. So actually, I am gonna have to start cutting out myself too, because I have my daughter's having like her graduation, I guess, like pizza party and stuff at the pre-K. So
You're not gonna try to
I'm gonna
sing there,
start
are you?
heading out towards that.
You're not
Huh?
gonna try to
No,
sing.
I'm not
Okay,
singing.
okay.
I'm just bringing French fries for the class.
Let's go, emoji. Let's
But
go. Big day.
yeah, yeah. It's not the graduation yet, but it's just like the little kid party with the parents and stuff. But yeah, so I'm gonna start heading out for that. Appreciate you, Humble. I see the emojis. Thanks for coming through. Thank everyone for coming through. And special big shout out to John. We're gonna chop it up more. I do have him scheduled for the comic shop to actually review the Ultimate X-Men #1. And for anyone that didn't get to check it out too from last night, we do have the visuals up now. So, where we are on X Spaces, right? But we are streaming the visuals out to YouTube, Twitch, and X live stream. And the pretty much the reason for that is because since we're reviewing these comics, which are heavily focused on visuals too, I feel like reviewing them without having a visual component kind of doesn't do it justice. So, while we review the comics and talk about it, yesterday we had our special guest, Sleeping Comics, and we did review Doom #1. But you can also watch the visuals too while you're in the space, and just chatting it up with us, and you can see the panels, specifically that comic, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful art. So if you missed that, you can check that out. That's also on my page, and we'll be doing that going forward. for every comic that we review. We'll have it streamed out on those platforms, Twitch, YouTube, and X, to give a visual component to the spaces. Still come in spaces though. Still come in spaces, because the way it works is you can actually be in spaces and you can click the because I'll pin the live stream to the top. You can click the live stream and it'll show you the visual while you're still in spaces. And the point behind that is we want it to be community reviews. So, yes, me, Bug, and Prop are hosting it, but anyone that has read the comic can join the space and review it with us, and your score actually goes towards the number score that we give. We factor in everyone's score that's on stage that reviews it with us to give ultimately a community review score 1 to 10. Where you think this comic falls. So definitely come through. I post what comic we're going to be reviewing every Monday on my page. So if you want to, get a heads up as far as what we'll be reviewing for that week, just check on Monday. But I can let you guys know now. Next Thursday, we'll be reviewing Ultimate Spider-Man #2. So, anyone that wants to dive into that and check that out and join in on the review panel and just have a conversation, definitely come in. Comic Shop, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to close up with this. Once again, I want to give a special shout out and thank you to Veve, the Veve handle, for coming through, MC for coming through, Justin for coming through, John for the amazing insight. We're going to chop it up more. I know this manga and anime discussion is far from over. There's still so much to go into. So, we'll talk more about it, but also big shout out and thank you to everyone in the space. Thank you guys for coming in and tuning in. And like I said, I will get the audio for this and post that on my YouTube. You can check my link in my profile that has all my socials. But I will post it on YouTube for anyone that wants to check out the beginning part of this conversation. Before I close up, Omi Wan, since you guys are on stage, you guys want to say anything before we close out?
Shout out to you. See what you're building. Of course, me and you talk on the side, so just more flowers. I'll probably just open a chill space and wait for the bus stop for anybody who wants to hang out. I'll play some music and hang out in there.
Let's
Thanks, Big
go. Let's go.
Moj.
Appreciate you, Moji. Thanks for the space, brother.
Yeah, thank y'all. Appreciate
Oh shit! One
it.
more
Everyone
thing.
in the space.
Sorry, Moj.
Huh?
Since we're here,
Yeah.
anybody who's going to San Diego Comic Con, if you haven't yet, you gotta talk to Fam Bam. Cause they have like a movie theater. I guess they like rented a whole thing, so people can watch together. Deadpool, Wolverine, and if you are going, I'll have some amazing T-shirts. I already teased one. There's maybe 3 or 4 coming out, and you can have your choice of something to rock over there if that's what you'd like. So, thank you, Emoji, for letting me do that, and shout out everybody once again.
Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, yo, I'll do you one more, bro. Like, hold on. I'll just pin to the top with your pin tweet to show people what you one of the t-shirts you're working
Oh,
on now
thank
with
you.
the X-Men '97 joint. So definitely check out O'Malley if you haven't already done so. His work, and for anyone that's going to be listening on this recording on the YouTube side, his Twitter handle is OmillyTees, at OmillyTees, spelled OMILLITEES. You can find him on X, but he does some amazing work with his shirts that are Veve inspired and also just Marvel inspired or superhero
Let's go.
inspired. So definitely check those out. All right, man. So yeah, you're gonna open up so people can just tune in, jump into your space from here. So that'll be the next move. But once again, appreciate everyone in here, and yeah, we'll chat more. Thanks again, everyone. Peace.